Okay, so taking all these growth factors into account, right? We expect the population for Asian Americans to, grow to somewhere between 7.8, maybe 8.1% of the total U.S. population by 2044. I stopped the graph at that point because that's when the United States is expected, based on the projections that we have, the current projections that we have, to become a majority minority nation or a majority multicultural nation. I've heard both terms used in the past. But Asian Americans are going to be a substantial part of that growth and driving that change. And I would say, even though you can look at the population contribution and say 8% is definitely growth, but it's not the biggest, well, I think this particular group has outsized influence beyond just their simple population numbers because of the many reasons that we've already discussed. So with that being said, I think it would be a mistake for any marketer to look at the situation right now in the United States and look at the situation that's forthcoming and say, I can afford to wait. I don't think that's true. And part of the reason why it's not true is that, growth is not just something prospective in thinking about the future, right? Growth is happening right now. We can see it in a number of different contexts, in a number of different ways, but it's that current realization of growth that means that we can't afford to wait if we want to position ourselves to really benefit from what's coming. So again, looking within kind of the CPG space, over the past few years, been able to kind of tease out and estimate kind of what the Asian American contribution to sales have looked like across many of the Nielsen measured categories. And we've seen positive growth in each of the last few years. But what's interesting to me about that growth is that within the latest time period, it's expanded. So if you look at the amount of growth that we're talking about, we're talking about 1.7 billion within the latest year. That is, that's pretty important in a landscape where for many CPG manufacturers, you are seeing plus 1% growth, if you're not in a contracting category, right? So any source of growth is important, especially one that seems to be growing and growing more positively as time goes on. And that growth, as you can see looking across various departments of the store, that growth from last year and the year prior seems to be pretty well distributed. So it's not necessarily concentrated in one specific area, but we're seeing it as a general truism that's kind of reigning across the board, with growth being positive in most cases over the past 2 years, but with that growth accelerating in the past year.